What if the comet that many are now discussing, called Atlas, was it the beginning of something new, or perhaps something already gone? Perhaps we are not alone in this universe, and there are people like us or creatures like them. What if Atlas, is it a fragment of the birth of a new planet, or perhaps a disintegrated planet that could have been inhabited by some creatures? We've all heard the story of the birth of our planet Earth, when a comet from outer space crashed into our planet back when dinosaurs roamed it. The world was still in its infancy, inhabited by large, no, enormous creatures, surpassing many currently inhabited. And I'm talking about creatures like dinosaurs, enormous pterodactyls, megalodons, and many other species that existed before the Big Bang. What if Atlas is part of a planet that broke off after the Big Bang? This could explain, for example, the speed of this comet. As we know, space travel is impossible using the same physics as our planet. In space, movement is possible only through repulsion. Perhaps Atlas broke off after a powerful meteorite impact on a planet in space. Its current speed is 250 million km/h. Even the most classified human technologies are incapable of reaching such speeds, let alone in our planet's airspace. Data on this comet became known on a certain date, after which NASA began actively monitoring it. To this day, 3 satellites observe it every second to study this event, which has only been observed a few times before. When we analyze the actual data, it turns out that Atlas is indeed the 3rd confirmed interstellar object to enter our solar system, after 1I Oumuamua and 2I Borisov. It was discovered on July 1, 2025, by the Atlas Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, observing system in Chile. Its trajectory is hyperbolic, meaning it is officially not bound by the Sun's gravity. The object enters and exits, it won't stay. This object's speed is astounding. According to some estimates, it is approaching 209,000 km 58 km at perihelion. Other data put the speed at approximately 245,000 km/h. This is one of the highest speeds ever recorded for an object outside our solar system, and it alone raises the question: how could a body of ordinary cometary origin achieve such momentum? Observations show that Atlas has a coma, a cloud of gas and dust around the nucleus, and a tail. For example, images from the Gemini South Observatory in Chile revealed a clearly growing tail on August 27, 2025. Spectroscopic analysis suggests that the object is unusually rich in CO2 and contains water ice and other compounds, providing clues to its origin. But it's the unusual details that prompt deeper consideration. For example, there are suggestions that this may not be just a comet, but something much more significant. The idea that it could be a probe from an ancient civilization or an artifact has not yet been confirmed, but the hypothesis itself remains. After all, when an object's behavior deviates from the usual, questions arise. One can imagine the following. Atlas is a fragment of a planet that once existed, possibly harboring life, and was then destroyed, and this fragment was ejected into space. An ancient planet, formed in the early galaxy, could have been inhabited by creatures whose ecology and technology surpassed our understanding. A powerful impact, a meteorite collision, or a powerful geological or astrophysical explosion ejected a piece of this planet's crust or mantle. It fluttered out of the system, endured billions of years of cosmic solitude, was bombarded by cosmic radiation, cooled and heated by stars, and finally entered our system as a pathway seal from a long-forgotten era. In this scenario, the velocity of Atlas becomes non-random. It reflects not just a gravitational jump, but the imprint of a catastrophe. Having been pushed off by the planetary body with momentum, this mass acquired an ultra-high speed, so that billions of years later it would cross interstellar space. The tail and coma are now not simply the ejection of ice under the influence of the sun, but the awakening of an ancient body, a substance that retains its memory. These ejections, similar to a technological device, could have been triggered by impulses. When the core heats up, material is released, and we see visual effects similar to those we observe. The chemical composition is no less important. If we imagine that this was a fragment of a planet with developed geochemistry or even technological activity, then the high concentration of CO2 and the unusual proportions of ice and gas could be remnants of the past. The body could have been rocky with metallic inclusions, perhaps even artificial structures. Scientists themselves note that the object's CO2 ice is much higher than that of a typical comet, indicating either a forming environment or a different chemical profile or the effects of cosmic radiation, or a combination of both. When we accept this perspective, we discover that the familiar comet from interstellar space model may be just the surface. Beneath the surface lies a story that suggests life, civilization, and technology may have existed beyond Earth, and that the legacy of these systems may travel, becoming apparent only when it crosses our home. Imagine a fragment of a high-tech planet drifting, a message or a remnant. The blast of an ancient catastrophe was the starting point. Then billions of years of solitude, and now it appears here. We observe not only the trace, but also the impact, the tail, the speed, the composition. Some scientists, such as Avi Loeb, have speculated in their articles that objects entering at high speed and with anomalies may be technological artifacts. Although the official opinion leans toward a natural origin, it is precisely such cases that push the boundaries of possibility. Our perception is changing. A comet is more than just ice and dust. In our imagination, it can be a time capsule, a carrier of materials and possibly structures created or transformed billions of years ago. The tail forming now seems to be opening up the shell, as if we were opening the archives of a civilization. All of this makes Atlas one of the most intriguing anomalies. And if we accept that this is not just fantasy, then the question, what if we are not alone, becomes what if some of them are already here? And what if what we see is not simply nature, but the result of technologies long abandoned or forgotten? As we follow Atlas, we witness a potential confluence of science, myth, and exploration. It is not just a random visitor. It is a reminder that the universe is dynamic, and we are just one page of it. When the sun warms the core, the material begins to evaporate, the tail lengthens, and the brightness increases. We, observing from Earth and satellites, can see a page unfolding. We can try to decipher it, compare composition, trajectory angles, and speed. Every frame, every spectrum provides a clue. And as we watch, we wonder, what if this isn't just a rock hurtling through space, but part of an ancient world with its own history? And if this is true, then even if Atlas doesn't bring a hello or a signal from another planet, its very existence is a reflection of the idea that we live in a much more multi-dimensional and rich universe than we thought. And each observed object may hold a secret worthy of our attention, exploration, and wonder. Some astronomers note that Atlas's spectrum contains flashes of blue light, more intense than those of ordinary comets. This glow is detected after perihelion passage, when the core temperature should have decreased and activity should have declined. But here, the opposite occurred. The object brightened, as if it were reacting to solar radiation not passively, but in a controlled manner. The SOHO and stereo telescopes showed that the brightness increased abruptly, as if the material were not simply evaporating, but experiencing a controlled release of energy. Such effects were not observed in either 2I Borisov or Oumuamua. It was this strange behavior that sparked discussion about whether Atlas might be something other than a natural object. Reports from the Harvard Center for Astrophysics note that the observed acceleration cannot be explained by ordinary gravitational interactions. This would require a mass loss of tens of percent, but no dust cloud of the corresponding size was detected. This means that either the calculations are incorrect or the object is moving according to other laws. One researcher said, "If this is a natural body, then nature has invented an engine we know nothing about." It's becoming clearer with each passing day that Atlas isn't a random rock that flew out of the darkness. Its trajectory almost perfectly aligned with the plane of the ecliptic, as if someone or something had calculated its path in advance to use the sun's gravity as an accelerator. The probability of such a coincidence during natural drift is less than 0.1%. In astrophysics, this is called an alignment anomaly. Nothing like this has been observed in interstellar objects before. If we try to imagine the past, we can imagine that billions of years ago there existed a planet with a structure similar to Earth. Perhaps it served as the cradle of the organic matter that later formed on us. A powerful impact, similar to the one that created our moon, could have thrown a giant fragment of the planet's crust beyond its orbit. Centuries later, it left the system, becoming an interstellar wanderer. Over time, the surface became covered in ice, methane, and metallic dust, while inside, remnants of minerals and perhaps traces of biochemistry, frozen microscopic fragments of life, remained. When such a fragment approaches a nova, it heats up, activates, and ejects. It's bringing to light what it's kept hidden for eternity. There's poetry in this. Perhaps Atlas is a message from the past, a chance capsule in which nothing has disappeared for billions of years, merely waiting to be discovered. And now that moment has arrived. According to NASA, the comet has a nucleus approximately 5 kilometers in diameter. It's not a giant, but it's large enough to withstand tidal forces. If it truly comes from another system, it offers a chance to study the chemical composition of a different stellar environment. After all, the proportions of nickel, iron, and carbon here deviate from standard terrestrial ones. Some spectra even indicate alloys that aren't found in nature, but are found in technology. Perhaps this is an artifact of the measurements, perhaps not. Scientists cautiously note that if such objects are detected more frequently, it could change our understanding of how matter is distributed between stars. But what if their appearance is not random? What if Atlas is just the first in a series of objects moving along a calculated trajectory, as if someone were directing them to different parts of the galaxy, like observing probes? This hypothesis was already considered after Oumuamua, and then it was rejected. But now the same thing is happening again, and the arguments are becoming more compelling. One could imagine that Atlas contains a dense metal core capable of storing energy, accumulating radiation, and possibly reacting to a certain spectrum of solar radiation. When it passes close to the star, this mechanism is activated, creating the acceleration and glow observed by our instruments. This would also explain the absence of a huge dust trail. After all, the source of the motion is not destruction, but energy. But where does this energy come from? Some physicists attribute this to the effect of electrodynamic acceleration. In theory, if the surface of an object is conductive and passes through the star's magnetic field, the potential difference could create thrust. This is how some space sails move in our experiments. But this requires precise trajectory alignment and a special structure. And yet, Atlas moves precisely as if it were controlled not by chance, but by someone's calculations.